Which jackal-headed deity holds the key to the heart's most desperate pleas? Anubis. In the Temple of Hope, devotees seek his powerful blessing of life, a call for favor that transcends death, ensuring a legacy of hope for health, abundance, and protection, turning every sacred gesture into an eternal prayer.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've got a really interesting set of excerpts today. Our job, as always, is to dive in and pull out the core insights for you. We're heading back to ancient Egypt, focusing on the god Anubis.
Yeah, Anubis. And when most people picture him, it's, pretty standard stuff. Jackal-head, guardian of tombs.
The guy weighing the heart.
Exactly. Presiding over that whole afterlife judgment scene. He's the god of transition, of death, of the journey after life wraps up.
Right, that's the classic image, firmly established. But the sources we have today, they're titled Anubis, Prayers for Hope and Abundance. And that title alone kind of throws a wrench in things.
It really does.
Because this material suggests that actually ancient Egyptians were actively going to Anubis for things like divine favor, good health, even wealth. Stuff for this life.
It's a significant shift, isn't it? We're moving the focus from the sort of solemn end-of-life role to the really immediate, tangible needs people had day to day. These sources paint him less as just the guide for the dead and more as, a powerful helper for the living.
Okay, so our mission here is to unpack that. What exactly were people asking for? And I guess the bigger question is, why Anubis? Why turn to a god of death for, a good harvest or staying healthy?
That's the core puzzle. We need to look at what they wanted and maybe try to understand the logic behind asking him for it.
All right, let's start with the setting. If you're praying for earthly blessings, not funeral rites, where do you even go? The texts keep mentioning a place called the Temple of Hope.
And that name is clue number one, right? Temple of Hope.
Yeah.
It really suggests this wasn't just part of a tomb complex.
Yeah, it sounds like a dedicated space.
Exactly. A place you went specifically to ask for positive things, for, hope. It implies a formal way of approaching Anubis for stuff completely separate from burial.
Okay, so people go to this Temple of Hope. What's the first step? The sources talk about the call for favor. That sounds like the opening move.
It is. It's that initial reach out. The moment the person basically says, okay, Anubis, I need your help here in my current situation. It's a deliberate plea for intervention.
And right after asking for favor, they seem to ask for protection. The term used is the protective circle.
And that makes a lot of sense, practically speaking. Life back then could be precarious. You had environmental dangers, maybe conflict, disease.
Things you couldn't always predict or control.
Precisely. So asking for this protective circle is like asking Anubis, who's a master of boundaries and thresholds anyway, to sort of draw a line around them. Keep the bad stuff out.
Okay, so secure the perimeter first. Makes sense. So the call for favor, protective circle. It sounds like these initial steps are all about getting immediate help, what the sources call the blessing of life.
That's a good way to put it. And think about what that implies for the listener. Anubis, the one who oversees the passage out of life, is being asked to guarantee the stability within life.
So if he controls the big transition,
then maybe people figured he had sway over, the quality and safety of life itself. It shows this deep trust in his power over existence, over those boundaries.
which leads us to the really surprising part in these prayers, the specific earthly things they asked for. We expect requests for safe passage after death, but these prayers focus first on something very human, the prayers of well-being.
Health. I mean, that was absolutely fundamental. Being sick wasn't just unpleasant. It could make you unable to work, a drain on resources.
So well-being was kind of foundational for everything else.
Definitely. You need to be physically capable to, live your life, honor the gods, provide for your family. So asking for health makes perfect sense as a priority.
But then right alongside health comes the part that really makes you double take. The promise of abundance. And we're talking direct requests for prosperity, for wealth, to Anubis.
This is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because, why Anubis for wealth? Traditionally, you might think of other gods, maybe deities linked to fertility, the Nile, commerce.
Right, like Sobek or maybe Thoth if you were a scribe hoping for success. So why Anubis? Is it just covering all the bases? Or is there a deeper connection these texts suggest?
Well, the sources don't spell it out explicitly, but they do hint at some possibilities. One idea connects to Anubis's role in transition and cycles. Think about the Nile flood in Egypt.
Okay, the annual flood. Huge deal.
Massive. It's a cycle of death for the dry land, followed by the rebirth of fertile soil. Life and abundance depended entirely on that cycle.
So Anubis, master of transition.
Might be seen as having some influence over that critical transition, too, the one that dictates whether you eat, whether the whole economy functions. It's a transformation cycle.
That actually reframes him quite a bit. He's not just about the soul's journey, but maybe about the land's journey, the resource cycle.
Potentially, yes. If he manages the ultimate transition, perhaps people felt he could also manage these vital yearly transitions that brought abundance.
So abundance here isn't just gold coins, it's more like the reliable functioning of the whole system.
Exactly. It's the stability needed for life to flourish. The predictable flood, the good harvest, the safe trade. Asking Anubis for the promise of abundance could be like asking for that systemic stability, believing his power touched everything from your health to the whole ecosystem.
Wow, okay. That's a much broader portfolio than we usually give him. So if people are asking for these big things, protection, health, systemic stability, it can't just be a one-way street, right? They must have had to do something in return.
Absolutely. The relationship had to be reciprocal. You don't just ask a god for everything without offering something back. The sources are clear on this. They detail the devotional actions required.
Right, showing you're serious about it. What kind of actions?
Well, the most direct form was the offering of gifts. These weren't just symbolic thoughts, they were actual tangible things. Grain, maybe livestock, crafted items. Things that represented real value, real sacrifice from the devotee.
So putting your money where your mouth is, essentially.
Pretty much. Giving a real gift showed sincerity. It's like saying, I'm investing in this relationship, Anubis. Help my investment in life pay off. It's almost like a practical contract.
And it wasn't just about the material goods, was it? There were also the sacred gestures.
Yes, specific actions. Maybe bowing or prostrating in a certain way, perhaps rituals performed in the Temple of Hope itself. These gestures were about showing respect, humility, following the correct protocol.
So the gift shows the economic commitment, and the gestures show the spiritual commitment.
That's a great way to look at it. It's the combination that matters. You need both the material offering and the proper demonstration of reverence to make the plea legitimate, to ensure it's heard. You're committing your resources and your actions.
Okay, so there's this whole system. Go to the Temple of Hope, ask for favor and protection, then well-being and abundance, and seal it with gifts and gestures. But it seems like there was an even bigger goal here, something beyond just getting through the next year.
There was. The prayers aimed for something more lasting. The sources talk about the legacy of hope. It's as if they saw Anubis not just as a source of immediate help, but as the foundation for ongoing optimism, something they hoped would continue, maybe even pass down.
A legacy. And that leads to the final concept mentioned, an eternal prayer. That sounds significant.
Well, it really does. It suggests the blessing they were seeking, the protection, the health, the abundance, wasn't meant to be temporary. They wanted it to be a continuous state, something lasting.
And this is where that short, punchy phrase from the sources comes in, right? His blessing lasts.
Exactly. And that's incredibly powerful when you think about who's saying it. If the blessing from Anubis, the god of death's threshold, lasts, it implies it goes beyond physical life.
So the abundance and well-being they secured in the Temple of Hope. Maybe that was seen as helping them not just now, but also in the afterlife, ensuring a smooth continuation.
That certainly suggests that. A kind of seamless stability, guaranteed by Anubis that bridges life and what comes after.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up for you. What we've seen in this deep dive is that Anubis was, well, a lot more versatile than his usual reputation suggests.
Definitely. Not just the solemn figure at the end, but someone people actively turn to during life in a specific temple of hope for really crucial things. Health, prosperity, safety.
He seems to have been seen as a guarantor of stability, the stability needed for a good life and for making that transition successfully later on.
It really makes you reconsider how the ancient Egyptians viewed life and death. Maybe not as two totally separate boxes, but more like a continuous flow.
Right, a cycle.
And the god who managed the biggest transition, death, was maybe the logical one to also manage the smaller, necessary cycles and transitions within life itself, the ones that brought prosperity.
So here's something to think about. If Anubis, the god overseeing the passage into death, is the one whose blessing is sought as an eternal prayer, the one whose blessing lasts, what does that tell us about how they understood earthly hope and prosperity? Was a stable, abundant life seen mainly as the best possible preparation for what comes next?
A connection between thriving in life and ensuring eternity. It's a fascinating thought to leave you with.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into a perhaps more hopeful Anubis.
We hope these insights offer you something lasting, too.